Welcome to your first day on the job as a manual machinist. We're located inside a large machining facility where we make metal parts using both manual milling and lathe machines and some CNC machines. Today, we've got a rush order on a broken part for one of our machines, a small flange that needs to be replaced. To make this part, we'll be using the manual lathe machine at this station and later a manual milling machine. Before we get started, let's take a look at our overview blueprint for the product we're making today. Grab the blueprint that is hanging above the workbench. Now, hang the blueprint on the rack next to the lathe machine. Looks like we'll be making 2 cuts with a lathe machine and then 4 small holes with a milling machine. Now that we've checked the overview, let's move on to our first cut of the day, which is detailed on our design drafts. Grab the first page of the design drafts hanging above the workbench. For the first cut, we'll be using a small cutting tool to remove a section of metal around the edge of the raw material, also known as the stock. But it looks like someone didn't clean up the machine after using it, so before we begin, we'll need to clear off the debris. Grab the air gun hanging on the left side of the lathe machine. Now turn on the air gun by pressing the large button on the back of it. Aim the air gun at the debris and clear it off. I'll let you know when it's cleared. Nice and clean. Next, we'll need to open up the chuck of the lathe machine, which holds the stock in place. The chuck will spin the stock at an extremely fast rate, and when we bring our cutting tool into contact with the spinning stock, it will cut parts of it away and shape it. To open the chuck, grab the chuck key from the workbench. Insert the chuck key into the slot on the chuck, indicated by a blue hologram. This will open up the jaws of the chuck. Now grab the stock from the workbench. It looks like a steel hockey puck. Looking at the design drafts, our first cut will be removing a portion of the material around the perimeter. Since it's your first day, I've already marked the stock where that cut will start, and also how deep it will go. Place the stock into the chuck now. Grab the chuck key and remove it. The chuck jaws will tighten around the stock, holding it securely in place. Next, we'll need our cutting tool, which may not look very sharp, but when it's brought into contact with our rapidly spinning stock, we'll easily cut it down. Grab the cutting tool from the workbench. Insert the cutting tool into the tool post. Secure the cutting tool to the tool post by pulling that small lever towards you, locking the cutting tool in place. All right, the lathe machine is now set up. To use the lathe machine, we'll be moving the cutting tool around by using a few hand wheels. There are 2 main hand wheels we will use for this section, the carriage wheel and the cross-feed hand wheel. The carriage wheel will move the cutting tool to the left or right, and the cross-feed hand wheel will move it toward and away from yourself. Try moving things around using both the carriage wheel and the cross-feed hand wheel. Now, we'll need to get the tool into the correct position for cutting. Adjust the position of the carriage so that the cutting tool is a few millimeters away from the edge of the blue circle on the stock. I'll let you know when it's in the right position. We're now ready to turn on the spindle using the small lever on the bottom right of the carriage, which will spin the stock. Grab the power lever and pull it down to turn on the machine. Now that the machine is running, let's cut to the chase. You'll want to slowly move the cutting tool to the left and into contact with the stock. You'll see some debris start coming off the stock as the tool starts to cut. Cut the stock until you reach the blue ring around the edge. Alright, that looks like a solid first cut. Move the cutting tool out of the way and then turn off the spindle. Oh, that made quite the mess, eh? Grab your air gun and clear off all the debris. Nice and clean. Alright, for our second cut, we'll be drilling a hole straight through the center of the stock. For this, we will be using a large drill bit that will attach to the tailstock, which is on the right side of the lathe machine. I'll walk you through how to set it up. First, grab the large drill bit from the workbench. Now, insert it into the tailstock. Next, move the crossfeed out of the way of the tailstock by bringing it all the way forward towards yourself. Move the carriage all the way to the right, up against the tailstock. Lock the tailstock into the carriage by pulling the tailstock lever to the left. Bring the carriage back to the left side, which will now bring the tailstock with it. Get real close to the stock. I'll tell you when it's in the right place. Now, turn on the spindle with the power lever. Alright, it's time to drill through our stock. Since the tailstock is already aligned to the center, we just need to move the large drill bit into contact with the stock. Slowly move the drill bit into the stock by rotating the tailstock handwheel clockwise until it punches all the way through. Move the tailstock back to the right, out of the way, and then turn off the spindle. Grab your air gun and clear off all that extra debris. Remove the stock from the lathe machine. Grab your check key, unlock the stock, and pull it out. And clean. Head over to the milling machine by pressing the teleport button on the workbench. This is a manual milling machine. We'll be using it to drill 4 holes into our stock. For your convenience, I'll mark on your stock where you'll be drilling the 4 holes. Before we start, let's clear off the debris from the last machinist. The air gun is hanging on the bottom right of the milling machine. Machinists use machine tools such as lathes, milling machines, and grinders to produce precision metal parts. Although they may produce large quantities of one part, precision machinists often produce small batches or one-of-a-kind items. Next, grab the drill bit from the workbench and insert it into the quill, which is underneath the head of the milling machine. We'll be using the vise on the milling machine to lock our stock in position. Grab the stock from the workbench and place it into the vise. Grab the vise handle from the workbench and attach it to the vise. We'll need to secure the stock to the vise by pulling the handle toward yourself. Now remove the vise handle by pulling it off. Okay, I'll explain how to operate the milling machine. We'll be using 3 main cranks to get the stock into position before we drill our holes. First, we have a vertical knee traverse crank, which will move the stock up and down. Try moving the stock up and down now. Second, we have a saddle traverse crank that will move the stock forward and backward. Try moving it back and forth now. And finally, we have the 2 table traverse crank handles, which moves the stock to the left and right. Try it out. All right, it's drilling time. I've marked where our first holes will go with a blue X, and there is a red laser that shows where the machine will drill. Using all 3 cranks, get the blue X on the stock underneath the drill bit. I'll let you know when you're in the right spot. Great. Now we can begin drilling. Because this metal is so dense, we won't be able to punch through the stock in one shot. We'll have to drill through the stock a few times before we can finally get to all the way through. First, let's turn on the milling machine. There is a power lever to the left of the quill on the side of the machine. Flip it up now to turn it on. Now, we will use the large lever to the right to move the drill bit up and down. Grab the lever and pull it down, bringing the drill bit into contact with the stock. When you drill into the stock, you'll see a lot of debris start to appear. That looks great! Now, complete the same motion 2 more times, and on the last one, the drill should punch right through the stock. Now move the stock into the next position for our second cut. I'll let you know when it's in the right position. That's the right spot. Drill the next hole by completing the same motions. Two down, 2 more to go. I'll leave the last 2 up to you. I'll talk to you when you're done. Machinists use their knowledge of the working properties of metals and their skill with machine tools to plan and carry out the operations needed to make machined products that meet precise specifications. The parts that machinists make range from bolts to automobile pistons. Those look fantastic. Now that we're done, let's turn off the machine. Clear off the pallet of all the debris. Unlock the vise by attaching the handle and rotate it away from yourself. Then, take out the stock. Thanks for your help today. I hope you enjoyed working on these cutting-edge machines. Take care.